Today, look what they're doing. They have us locked in our houses. We can't go anywhere. We can't shake hands with anyone. You can't get close to anybody. You think this is by accident too? Of course not. Of course not. They don't want you interacting with people. They realize that there's power in that. If people got together and they started talking and interacting with like-minded people, it gives them power. They want to take that power away. They want to control you. This is so much bigger than people actually think it is. So we got to start realizing that we mean something to each other. We're important to each other. We need each other, all of us. And they don't want us to know that, because if we did, we'd gain strength, and they don't want us to have that strength.
This is Donegan Kaiser, founder of Liberty and Finance. I'm now a licensed gold and silver dealer with Miles Franklin. Call me directly for the physical gold and silver that you need at the best price with personalized, private service from one of the oldest and best respected companies in the business. 30 years strong, A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau, 0 complaints, licensed and bonded, insured delivery or vault storage or IRAs, excellent prices, privacy and confidentiality, pay by check, money order, ACH or wire, satisfaction guaranteed. Call me directly at 419-819-9209 or my associate at 310-562-6400 or email us at kaiser@milesfranklin.com. Welcome back to Liberty and Finance. We're delighted to have this returning guest. Gregory Mannarino is the founder of traderschoice.net. He's also known as the Robin Hood of Wall Street because he stands up for the ordinary guy in the face of the powers that be. He's here with us again on Liberty and Finance this Thursday, March 18th, 2021. Greg, thanks for coming back on.
Thanks for having me. Always great to be on your show.
I follow your work as you broadcast couple times per day, and then you tweet constantly between those broadcasts on your traderschoice.net and your newsletter, and I'll give you a chance to talk about that in a little bit. But first, if you could just let people know who maybe aren't following your work, why they should be, but also what the main focus you have right now, because you've been watching the stock market, the bond market, and interest rates, and Bitcoin, and silver, and gold forever, and been keeping up people on the right side of all of those things. What is it that's got your eye right now, and that you're the most watchful about, and you're looking towards the most right now?
Well, it's definitely the bond market. It's something I've always told people to look at first for I don't know, an entire decade. Everyone is fixated on what the stock market is doing, and that never makes sense to me, because how can you gauge what the stock market is going to do if you don't have a handle on the bigger picture? The bigger picture is the debt market. By exponents, the Fed, as we all know, chose to rig the debt market so they can inflate a stock market bubble and a housing bubble and distort asset prices of all kinds of assets. But that's what you need to do. And especially right now, we have this issue with the 10-year yield creeping up. There's a lot of fear in this market of inflation. Even Fed Chair Powell mentioned this a couple of weeks ago. He had to walk it back a little bit. Recently, yesterday, we heard from the Fed, they're going to buy it all through 2023. It wasn't enough. And I even said it when I covered what the Fed did yesterday. We had a market rally after the Fed said, hey, we're gonna buy it all. And I said he missed some points, and I would not be shocked at all to see the market give back today, which it did. The Nasdaq fell 3%. 3%. And again, the market, it's astonishing to me that the market wants to be managed. The market wants the Federal Reserve to control everything, and I'm specifically referring to the yield curve. The market wants this so badly it can taste it. And what will that mean? That means the Federal Reserve is going to basically attempt to fix the shape of the yield curve by picking targets, let's say for the 10-year yield or down the line. More than likely, they're going to pick targets for the longer end of the curve. Okay, the 10 years is the most important for a guy like myself, because that's the benchmark. Okay, so the Fed will pick these targets. It'll say, okay, this is where we want to keep it, and they're going to adjust their purchases of debt to keep it in an extremely tight range. Now, if this were to happen, and I believe it's going to at one particular time, probably sooner than people think, and that depends on how much turmoil the Fed wants to create in the market. This is not by accident what we're seeing here anyway. The Fed wants control. They want to give the illusion that they're losing control to gain control. And the market will go crazy. If the stock market were to get what it wants, which is yield curve control, another phase is going to take over. And in my view, I've covered this, but I think it's very, very important. We're going to see a multiples expansion. In other words, if the Fed is going to fix the yield curve, okay, investors are going to be willing to pay more for a share of stock or company. So you're going to see a multiples expansion. And what do we at? Dow 32,000, whatever we're at right now. I don't even know. Something like that. It's going to go up very, very quickly. And that's what the market wants this right now. It really does. It doesn't want to be free. It wants to be managed. And that to me is astonishing. I mean, this is greed to the highest order. We all know how stuff like this is going to end. It's going to end horribly as these distortions get worse, because the Fed is only concerned with inflating asset bubbles right now, inverse bubbles as well, because they will at one point pull the plug. The plug is going to be pulled. The debt market is a monster. It's Frankenstein. The Fed can rig it all they want to. At one time, it's not going to work by design. The Fed's going to pull the plug. All this is going to flip around. Risk on will become risk off. And I think certain assets are going to skyrocket in that environment. You know, it's always the same thing. Markets run in cycles. Most things, even voices, have a frequency to them. You know, markets also run in a cycle. So right now, this engineered bull market is really out of control. It's nothing like we've ever seen before. We got margin debt, people leveraging themselves to participate in it, record high here. It's very dangerous. It's a very dangerous situation for people to be in. But at the same time, what do? You got to capitalize on it. You got to take advantage of the market you have. You got to trade the market you have. You got to look for opportunity. Okay. For me, those opportunities lie in risk off assets. I trade the market every day. That's what I do. I capitalize it. But that does not mean that I'm not saying, okay, where should I be putting money? What should I be doing? I should be owning physical gold, physical silver more specifically. You know, it's my favorite. I've been saying this since day one in the world. I think it's the most undervalued asset in the history of the world. Cryptocurrencies. I'm also a major cryptocurrency advocate. You know that. You know, I'm in all the right spots, and I'm trying to keep those people that watch me in the right spots too. And no matter what happens, I mean, that's the beauty of it. I mean, every day I wake up and I say, hey, where are the opportunities? And I look for them and I attack each one of them. I go right after them. And again, keeping in mind that all this is going to eventually change, but we trade the market we have, absolutely. But at the same time, we're getting ready for what's coming down the pike. We know what central banks are doing, what their end game is, what they want to achieve. So if we know that, it just makes our life simpler.
Several things you touched on there I wanted to circle back on. One, you said the market wants to be managed, and you said it's so strange. And I guess it is strange if you think of it from a purist standpoint. If this is supposed to be a market, it's supposed to be a free market. But in the one sense, you've talked for the last decade about risk on versus risk off, and you've talked about how this has been how the market has become addicted to the idea of getting the kinds of gains that you get from a risk on play, knowing that someone's got your back. You used to talk, this was a year or two ago, about when Trump was in, the president's buy and the Fed put. You said you're protected from both sides. The president is saying this market's going to go up. I'd take him at his word, and the Fed says they're gonna backstop you. I'd take them at their word, and it's risk on, people. And then also now you're talking about that there could be even a multiples expansion, even from what people have called the bubble of everything, with the stock market, the bond market, real estate market, if it becomes clear that the Feds are in fact fully engaged in yield curve control. In other words, if this environment is being artificially provided and sanctioned to be a risk-on playing field, some people look at that with a very jaundiced eye and say, that looks like a big, huge trap for ordinary people who then feel compelled, if the only way to get ahead is to get into the casino and put all your chips on the table and go all in. And it's when you get enough of all that middle class putting all of their life savings on the line there that then you can spring the trap and say, okay, now we own it all. I mean, is that possibly not so strange what's going on, but part of the warning that you're giving people is, people, be aware, it's going to look good until it doesn't. And I know you've said that many times, but isn't this whole backstopped, risk on, all in type environment exactly the kind of thing that can pull in the entire middle class and all of their retirement nest eggs, all the baby boomers, everybody in, and put them at great risk?
Absolutely. And this is no different than every other time before it. It is different in the fact that this is much larger. But people tend to do this. If you look at the top, or when we got close to the top of every single market crash, you got this euphoria. You got people borrowing to participate in the market, doing everything they can to get in here. And then again, it's the average guy or the average girl that gets stuck holding the bag. It's by design. They lure you in here. They get you in here, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, you didn't see that coming, did you? Well, most people should understand that it is coming. This is all by design to hyperinflate the debt bubble. So it inflates the stock market bubble, the real estate bubble that we're in right now, the everything bubble that we're in right now that you just made reference to. But the issue is with the stock market, like we just found out today. I mean, but this is an ongoing phenomenon with the margin debt and people leveraging themselves into this market, which means they can lose more than they're putting into it. A lot more. I frown upon that. People that get into this market and trade on margin or on borrowed money here, especially when they're trading derivatives, they can lose a lot more than their initial investment here. You really got to know what you're doing. But for the average guy and the average girl with a 401k, yeah, they're looking at it. It looks great. There are probably a lot of paper millionaires out here, but I'd be willing to bet that they're gonna cry at one particular time when this whole thing just reverses, and it's going to be extremely rapid. Right now the party's gung ho, go go go. We've seen this before. This is nothing new, and it always ends the same for those same people. The middle class gets destroyed, and that's really the grand plan here. We just found out today, as a matter of fact, that globally the middle class is shrinking. What a surprise to me. What a surprise to you. We all understand this has been going on for the longest time. This is a deliberate act. I've been warning about this for an entire decade, explaining to people where this is going to go, the emergence of this two-tier society. I've tried to frighten people in the middle class. I've said, if you are a member of the middle class, you have a target on your face. It's tattooed on. You got to try to get it off. And I've been saying those exact words for a very, very long time. Put yourself in the right spots here. But I think the greed is taking over. I mean, I have a lot of friends of mine who are like, in this market, leverage themselves in here, looking for those crazy things like GME, GameStop, what happened, and they're all over it. And, oh, Greg, I should have listened to you. I lost all this money and blah, blah. Yeah, that's not me. I am a very, very steady player in this market. I realize what's coming here. I'm not a one-trick pony, and that scares me too. You got these people out here, they're one-trick ponies. They're either all in on the market or they're all in on this or all in on that. No. The right way to do it is to spread yourself out, okay, and understand where we're going, take advantage of the situation, but always be mindful of what the bigger plan is, to hyperinflate the stock market bubble, to eventually pull the plug on it. But the implosion is going to be in the debt market first. Going back to what worries me is this issue in the debt market. The debt market is the driver of everything. Okay, all this cash in the debt market, is suppressing rates. At one particular point, this is going to reverse. Cash is going to leave the debt market very rapidly. It's going to put pressure on the stock market. That will sell off. And then we enter the risk off cycle. We go risk on, risk off. And, I think that is going to be an epic moment, and it's going to last a while. It's going to, but again, the opportunities are now, looking for those risk off, very undervalued, massively undervalued assets. And this is the same story as well. Again, this is not new. This is a market cycle system that occurs every X amount of years. This is the biggest bubble we've ever seen. So when people are looking over here, you really got to be looking over there, okay? At the same time, you want to trade the market, that's fine. It's not for everybody. There's no doubt about it. But if you're not a trader, you should at least be saying, okay, what can I do because I know what's going to happen? It just makes sense with central banks inflating. I mean, the Federal Reserve's balance sheet has gone up 100% in 1 year, 100% in 1 year. This is, something I've also explained, that central banks are going to inflate beyond your wildest dreams. Who would have imagined that in the last year the Fed's balance sheet would have doubled? I mean, and this is a global phenomenon with regard to other central banks. They're doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. They're going to inflate, which means we need to take the opposite side of that trade, looking at risk off. Okay, it's very, very simple. I know a lot of this probably seems complicated to people, but it really just boils down to what we know to be true. What is happening now? And what do we believe the most likely scenario is going to be? So this is how we capitalize on it now.
One of the things that you've done consistently over the past decade, in my observation, is you've identified for people, for example, physical silver as your your kind of poster child, undervalued asset of choice, and then said, but meanwhile, you can make...
Got some here. I got some here. People send me these, actually. This one came in the mail. This is a 2 ounce, and this is a 1 ounce. Came both of these came in the mail over the last month. It's kind of nuts. I got them over here. I got a whole little setup here. My desk is a mess. Otherwise, I would show it to you.
Well, the point I was getting at was you've been consistent, whereas you've said, yes, bet against the debt. Yes, be your own central bank. Yes, find the most undervalued risk off hard asset. You've identified physical silver, but you've continued to keep irons in the fire, pulling cash out of the market on a day-by-day, week-by-week, month-by-month basis, year after year, while keeping people abreast of what's likely to be the next phase we're entering here. We have a question from a viewer that echoes this. Sight Beyond Sight asks, says, I respect Greg's work, but I just can't trust my cash not disappearing into ether were I to trade stocks. I prefer to have my savings account in precious metals. I may not be able to, quote, rip the face off this market, but I feel my strategy is sound. What are your thoughts? And I noticed one thing about the word choice there. Said, were I to trade stocks, I prefer to have my savings account in precious metals. And I think you don't have a problem with that. Precious metals is a perfectly fine place for a savings account, but that's distinct from your trading.
Absolutely. Totally. No, look, like I said, trading isn't for everyone. You got to really know this market, and you got to be willing to take risk. All right. Look, even I don't win every trade I play. I win most of my trades. There's no way anybody that tells you that they win every single trade is a liar. I don't care how good they are, how long they've been trading, or it's just an impossibility. And so people can handle that. You have to understand that losing a trade or two or three, even if a whole bunch in a row, is normal as a trader. You can also have a string of wins. I mean, 30, 40, 50 in a row. This has happened to me. And then I'll have 10 in a row or whatever that I will lose. You have to understand it's a game of give and take in this market. You always just want to be on the right side of it. If you're winning more trades than you are losing, and you're getting out of those losers relatively quick, you're going to do fine. But trading this market it's not for everybody. That's the truth. And in order to trade this market, you got to be in front of your computer pretty much all day long, and you got to follow this market like nobody else does, because it's the person who does the most homework that is going to win. And there are guys like myself who are out here constantly looking for opportunity, and you can't compete. Like a regular guy or a regular girl, let's say, who has a regular job that is going up against a trader like myself, they're going to lose because they don't have that same level of understanding of the market. So in order to be a successful trader, you got to become the market. Now, going back, if you're a person, I tell people all the time, if you can't trade, that's fine. This is just what I do. And that's what I do. But again, what else do I do? I'm pulling profits. I'm putting them in other assets. You can't be all in on one thing. As a matter of fact, what I'd like to do is I have like X in my trading account. Once I go above X, I sweep the account. I sweep it and I buy things. I buy other assets. And it doesn't even have to be just like, although, my favorite asset is silver too. But, like I own vintage musical instruments. I own artwork, real estate, things like that too. The only difference I think between someone that is wealthy and someone that is not is they just own things. You just own things that you find are undervalued, or maybe you want to make a hobby out of. For example, like I play guitar. Most people know that. So I have some old instruments that I like to have, and they've gone up substantially in value. Artwork, same kind of thing. But the most undervalued things, in my view, does still remain the risk-off assets, which would be physical gold, physical silver, my all-time favorite. I also own platinum and palladium too. I don't fault anybody for not ripping this face off of this market. You know, I have my traders that follow me, and I have a lot of people. In fact, I think most of the people that follow my work are not traders. They're more people trying to gain a perspective on what's happening,
insight,
what's going on around them, so they can strategize. What should I be doing here? And again, don't take my word for anything, not even on this interview. Just do your own homework. You know, look into these things. You have a God-given intellect. I suggest using it. All right. Forget the propaganda, the nonsense that they're trying to fist feed you. Just look around you, because what they're doing here is trying to convince you that what you're seeing is not real. It's an incredible thing. Just today is a perfect example. Just real quick, February they just said our economy is going on like gangbusters. Meanwhile, they just told us a few days ago. In February, we had retail sales cratering, auto sales crashing, and manufacturing falling off of a cliff because of the weather.
And
but
unemployment.
No, we're booming now. This is what they do. They're playing with people's mind. They think you're going to forget about what they just put out a few days ago. It's all propaganda. So turn off that stuff, watch shows like this, and I think you'll have a better idea of what's going on here. But absolutely, you know, if you have extra money and you have only one thing to invest in, if you only had one, I'd be in silver. That's the truth.
That's actually a follow-on question here from Donald Robinson, who says, Greg often proclaims silver to be the best investment opportunity. Why?
Oh, my goodness. There's so many reasons. I mean, I like to look at things, for example, okay, being a market guy, I like to think of gold. I'm going to say gold for a reason. Just bear with me here. I look at gold and I look at the Dow Jones Industrial Average. My view is at one particular time, we are going to see gold and the Dow par. Okay, whatever that might be. If we get Dow 6,000, okay, whatever. When we go to risk, let me clarify. When this becomes risk off, okay, and the Dow plummets, and it's going to plummet at one particular time. Whatever it bottoms out at, 12,000, whatever it might be, I believe we're going to par with gold. Okay, now if that happens, I believe silver is going to achieve a 15-to-1 ratio with gold. So that's how I value it. I look at silver and say, okay, what is the ratio between silver and gold right now? I don't even know what it is. It's 90? It's humongous, whatever it might be. I believe we're going to achieve a 15-to-1.
Yeah, 65-to-1 about now, yeah.
Do you know the ratio right now?
It's about 65-to-1.
65-to-1. Okay, 65-to-1. So think about what we're talking about. I'm talking about a Dow par with gold, and I'm talking about a 15-to-1 silver. That's an amazing gain. Okay, that's why I say silver is the most undervalued asset in the history of the world. And again, it's just used in so many things. It's going to find more uses as we move forward too. But that's how I gauge that it's just massively, massively undervalued at this particular time. And it's real money. And that makes it even more valuable. It's something that people have been using for thousands of years, and no Fed president or anybody else is going to tell me it's not money. People want, I just sold my Camaro recently. If someone wants to pay me in gold or silver or even Bitcoin, I had a guy, he's like, oh, Greg, will you take Bitcoin? I'll buy the car. Yeah, guess what? I never heard from him. Of course, I don't have to transact in dollars. I'll transact in whatever you want me to transact in. In fact, I'd rather not transact in dollars because I'm going to take those dollars and put it into something else anyway. Anyway, that's my take on it, and that's why I feel that silver is so freaking undervalued. I mean, who knows what it could be? I mean, let's think about that for a moment. Let's say we have a Dow on par with gold at, I don't know, 10,000. Now just figure out what the price of silver is going to be and gauging from where it is right now. I mean, and the other thing with regard to metals, why we know they're so undervalued is we have the largest bank on the planet. This is JP Morgan, who's been caught repeatedly rigging the price. Why would they be rigging the price to the downside? It's unbelievable. They just paid what, 9.2 billion in fines? What was that, 6 months ago for rigging the metals market? It's incredible, but they're still doing it, and they're not going to stop. It's just the cost of business, I think, for them actually.
The related question here from William Mueller. Now, you talk about how you're able to function as a trader by analyzing what's really going on so that you can capitalize on it, so that you can invest in assets that you believe are going to hold value into the future. William says, Greg, as an analyst, what good is analysis when the global elite will continue to decide all? At what point should we just go full rogue and disconnect from this system?
Well, unfortunately, you can't disconnect from it. They're still dictating all the rules for us, and unfortunately, we're living by those rules right now. So we weaponize the system. We realize it's rigged. We realize what they're doing, and because we know this, we use that to our advantage. Like I said, we weaponize the system against those that are trying to weaponize it against us. For every strategy, there is a counter strategy. It's always the same, like even in warfare. This is like warfare for me. If I know what these people are going to do, I know what they're going to do. I've been calling it for years, and I've been dead on with it. And so if we know their plan, it makes it very simple for us to counter strategy to counter it. I just think it's just so simple. To me, it's like adding 2 + 2. We know what they're going to do. This is what we're going to do to counter that. They're going to inflate. So you want to be on the opposite side of that. At the same time, if we know they're going to inflate, you want to know where the stock market's going to go, everybody? Watch the Fed's balance sheet. The larger the Fed's balance sheet gets, the higher this market's going to go. And I mean, that's just the way it's been going for now. And it will continue to do that until they're done. They're going to kill the dollar in its current form. I think most people realize that. We're going to get a new system, a whole new system, a whole new paradigm is coming down the pike, but that's not going to change the fact that money is money. And I'm referring to gold and silver specifically.
This question from Busy Mountain gets to the heart of that last point you were just making about where we're headed. He says, if the banks get all the money and power, as you say, what happens if their money becomes worthless? Do they remain in power? How so?
Their money isn't it become worthless. They're buying assets right now. They're not just holding cash. I hope people don't think that's what's going on here. The rich and the well-off probably are not holding that much cash around. They're taking these dollars that are being devalued and they're buying assets with them. They're not just hoarding rooms full of cash. Kind of an interesting question. Does that person believe that people are hoarding cash? No, they're not hoarding cash.
Well, I don't even think they're talking about people. They're talking about the powers that be. So like the Fed, for example.
People or institutions. No, they're absolutely not. They're buying assets. The Federal Reserve is funneling dollars around the world, dollars to central banks. They're not other central banks. You know what these other central banks are doing with dollars? They're buying assets. They're not keeping those dollars. No one should be holding more dollars, in my view, than they need. You really should be putting this in other things, understanding the environment. If central banks are going to inflate 100% for the Federal Reserve's balance sheet in just the last year, that tells me the last place I want to be is holding a dollar bill. I want to take those dollars and I want to invest it in some other asset, more than likely those that are very suppressed right now, waiting for the next cycle to come. We don't know when that's going to be, but it is going to come. So understanding that just makes it so simple to buy assets that are on sale. So that's what they're going to do. I mean, it's all about control. And I think sincerely, this may sound kind of like a conspiracy theory, but I think they want to cut down on the global population too. All about control. I think they want population control. I think they want control in every aspect that they can possibly get it. And they're going to engineer a crisis on an epic scale to allow that to happen, to have a full global control mechanism. And right now, it's the banks that are running everything. It's the central banks that have a stranglehold on the entire world. A stranglehold on the entire world. We're using their system. Most people don't want to not use it. I mean, they're still transacting in dollars or euros or some other kind of fiat currency. When are people going to start realizing that we can transact in other things, like maybe a cryptocurrency if they want to, or maybe even gold or silver right now? No, they choose to participate in the toxic system. In fact, I'd be willing to bet that every single one of the people that are listening to this blog right now, this interview, are still transacting in dollars for the most part. And that tells me that they're still willing participants in a toxic system.
Back to that question about what the Fed is holding, when the person was asking if they have all this power and they're doing all this, you mentioned the Fed balance sheet. I think it might be completely inverted in people's understanding, because a lot of ordinary people work for a job, they get paid in dollars, they put dollars in the bank, and that's their balance, their bank balance in the bank in dollars. But the Fed's balance is not IOU, the Fed's balance is you owe me, right?
That's 100% right. And I'm really happy that you brought that up. I think most people probably know that, but some people don't. It's all debt. It's all what we owe them. It's unbelievable that we, the people of the world, have allowed this system to manifest itself. Who came up with that? It had to be bankers, right? Imagine that they actually run everything through this debt-based system. It's 100% debt-based. And they've created a world of debt slaves due to the system. And people just sit back and they think everything is just great. It's fantastic. You got to be kidding me. But I mean, what can I say? People have done this to themselves. And sadly, there's those of us, you, me, and the people listening to this right now, I think, who get it, who have an inkling of what's going on. And it's very frustrating because you talk to people out in the street or anywhere and they think you are Looney Tunes because they don't understand the system. Why don't they teach any of this stuff in school? There's a reason for that. There's an absolute reason for that. You're not allowed to know how the whole system really functions, because if you did, you'd probably be taking some kind of anxiety medication or trying to figure a way out. And unfortunately, central banks run the world. There's nowhere to go unless you went, I guess, maybe to some obscure island where there's a tribe out there that has, that I don't know what they do. They're hunter-gatherers or something. There's no way to escape their system right now. We're all under their boot. And it's very sad to see that. But
one of the things that presses that point home, I think they talk about it each year in the middle of the summer. It used to be in the spring, is whatever they call it, Tax Freedom Day or something, that you've worked your whole year up to that day just to pay your obligation to the government, and then the money that you earn after that for the rest of the year is yours to keep. And that date keeps moving later and later and later in the year each year. If you figure it out that way, percentage-wise, the percentage that each person ends up paying in taxes versus what they're able to keep.
Oh, it's unbelievable. It really is. It's outrageous. But that's the system too. It's just, it's so toxic. And I think, again, they want to issue in a new system, and it's going to be just as toxic as this one, unfortunately, because the central bank's power resides in their ability to issue debt. They're never going to give that up. They've managed to take over the world via their debt-based system. It's very, very crazy to think about it.
On that point, then, explain again, because I think it will help to clarify, to take back the curtains of what's going on. Because if the banks, since 18 months before the Basel III announcement about gold getting a new reclassification in its asset class, were acquiring gold to the tune of 60 times more than they had in any of the previous years. In a world where we're all using this currency and it's all debt-based and that's where the banks are getting their power from, then why in the world are the central banks of the world acquiring gold at 60 times the rate that they ever had before?
Well, I mean, that should be pretty obvious to everyone. Like I said, these are just so undervalued, and they're always going to be real money. They're always going to hold value. So, I mean, that's how I started off with this whole thing. Like, looking at this whole thing many years ago, saying, okay, understanding what's going on, what should I be doing? Everyone was looking in one direction, but I started looking in the other direction. Started saying, okay, I need to start holding hard assets. I understand where this is going to go eventually. Nobody, not even myself, realized that it would go on like it is now, how they would do the things that they're doing now. But they're trying desperately to create a dependent society here in the United States, a slave-dependent society. People dependent on the government. There are already, these handouts, things that people, they're deliberately crushing people, making them desperate, so they have to rely on the government and the government is the banks, the corporations. That's the real situation here. The government is not what people think it is. And unfortunately, that's where we are going here, to a slave society. Extreme haves, extreme have-nots. And I hope people understand that that's what's actually going on around them. I don't. Most people have no idea. They think this whole thing is just going great, or it's all an accident, and the scamdemic is just, it's an accident. There's no. This thing here, what we're in now, has really allowed the central banks to finish what they started, to become the lenders and buyers of last resort. They want that. They've wanted to achieve that goal since 1913, to own it all, to create a slave society dependent on them. What better way to do it than to shut down the global economy, cause it to basically crash so they could get in here and vastly inflate without a major risk of hyperinflation, because there's no money velocity. They killed the economy. It's a scam beyond a scam. There's nothing that even comes close in the history of the world into the environment we're in right now.
We've interviewed Wayne Jett, the author of Fruits of Graft, Great Depressions Then and Now. He talks about lots of it. He went back and read all the original documents and notes from the White House and everything else about during the Great Depression of the 1929 through 39, and talked about, most people think like our president, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, did all these great things to help us get out of the Depression, and Wayne Jett exposed that policy choice after policy choice, both of the bankers and of the federal government during that whole time, was caused directly to worsen and deepen and extend and prolong the Depression, and to take wealth out of the hands of the ordinary people, and then devalue the paper current after they had taken their gold away, then devalue their currency that they had exchanged for them, and that sort of thing. So there's quite a track record, and there was a lot of bitterness. I know my mom, you and I were talking before we started this about old timers who have that wisdom and that knowledge and that history, and who have that longevity, either from Pearl Harbor or from the earlier days of our nation of look, we've been around this, we've seen this before, people. We've been hurt before by the banks and the powers that be, and now it's happening again. But it's a new crop of people. We got the baby boomers and millennials, and we have to make sure we find out what happened before so that we don't repeat it again, or find out what we can do about it. One of the things that's a concern to one of our viewers, Joe Medina, asks, we've been talking about financial assets, but you talked about other real things that are of value, like he brings up food. He says, does Greg believe that if we have a grand solar minimum, we'll collapse our food production? And what would be he would consider to be the best asset to hold during times like that? If food becomes a crisis for whatever reasons, do you believe that things like Bitcoin, gold, silver, commodities, or what would any of those assets do for me if there is no food, says Joe? He says he's been thinking about this for a long time, just wondering what Greg thinks about that.
Well, why do you think Bill Gates is the largest owner now in the United States of farmland, and he wants to buy more? They want more control too. They want to control the food. They want to control everything. The best thing for people to do would be to be ready for whatever comes down the pike, be able to grow your own food and stuff like that. That's a little bit out of my wheelhouse. I know there's a lot of, preppers out here that really could steer these people in the right direction, but absolutely, you have to have a stash of things, non-perishable items, just in case. You always got to have the high ground. I've been telling people this for the longest time. There's people who act in times of crisis, or when we're building up to a crisis that they know is coming, and there are the vast majority who do nothing, even though maybe deep down inside it doesn't feel right to them. Like I said earlier, people have a God-given intellect, and I think people understand that things are just wrong. They get this wrong feeling, and then they block it. No, it can't be, because it's so overwhelming that people tend to they blow it off. But I think, listening to some of these questions that people are asking, is that we have thinkers out here. We have people that are concerned, and that's fantastic. And I love to hear that and see that. But again, understanding where we're going should make people want to do something, act, whatever it might be, however you feel, whatever your God-given intellect is telling you, hey, you need to do something. Listen to that little voice in your head that says you need to do something, because more than likely that little voice in your head is correct. It's telling you what you should be doing. If you understand the current situation, where we are going, what they want to do, what they're trying to pull off here, it's astonishing to me how many people don't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I talk to people all the time. Good friends of mine, they just don't do anything. They just go about their lives and they think everything is just fine. And it's really not fine if they understand what's going on. But again, they're distracted. They're propagandized. They're told, look over here, don't look over here. They're distracted by politics and this and that. And they're not able to focus at all. It's all by design too. The fake news, like I just referred to earlier today. Oh, we're doing great in February. Meanwhile, everything's collapsing.
Yeah.
Debts and deficits ballooning like we've never seen before. What do people think? All of a sudden, this is just going to turn around? All this stimulus is going to help us? No way. The stimulus is hurting us. It's not helping anything. All it's doing is fulfilling the end game of the central banks. Sure, they have all the cash they want. They can print it out of thin air and give it to everybody. All it's doing is making them stronger. And that was a big falsehood. It used to drive me nuts during President Trump's tenure. And they were saying, oh, the Fed, Trump is trying to bankrupt the Fed. No. Every dollar that any politician or president calls on their central bank to issue or to devalue, you remember President Trump kept saying, oh, we need a weaker dollar, makes the central bank not just stronger, but stronger exponentially. And he wasn't stupid, President Trump, although a lot of people think he was, but he was playing the game too. He understood, unfortunately, what was going on and had to play the game, I think. I've said this before and I'll say it again. I was talking to a friend of mine earlier today. I think when a president sits behind that resolute desk, a group of men surround that room. It's not an oval shape for no reason. And once they surround that oval shaped room, they let that person sitting there know how it's going to go. And they tell them this is what you're going to do. And unfortunately, they get a rude awakening at that particular time. And, all the rest of it is just theater, unfortunately, and people buy it. They buy it because they're keeping their faith in the wrong place. You put your faith in a human being, you're done. Okay, I think we all know where we really should have our faith.
Yeah, one of the things that you just mentioned was the Fed saying, don't worry, we can create unlimited amounts of money, they call it, but we can create unlimited amounts of currency to help all these various situations. But if they really can't create money, all they can do is create currency by pulling value out of our right pocket and handing it to us. Part of it,
creating debt.
Yeah, creating debt, exactly. We have a question here that you said people feel uneasiness. People feel in their gut the little voice that's in them saying something's not right. It's seriously wrong. You really seriously need to do something. David Blackard says, on the housing market, is it worth the pain and time to wait for a housing market correction? I want to use half of all my portfolios to go to the down payment. Will there come a peak time for me to do this? So I think that's part of the problem that people are having, Greg, if I could, is that they do sense that something's deeply wrong. They do see the disconnect between Main Street and Wall Street. They sense that this is not real. They sense their gut tells them this is all falsehood and lies. What's the alternative if they really want to get a house, if they really want to, get ahead, have a retirement or something like that?
I say this, look, I don't want people to get into any debt at all. If people can afford a home and if they can buy it without having a debt burden, I mean, that would be great. And you can't pick tops either. Look, the last thing I do, I don't try to pick market tops, market bottoms, or an asset bottom or a top. I try to, for example, when I trade, I'm looking at trends. What's going on here? Where's this trend going here? Anyone that tries to pick a top or a bottom over time will lose in this market. And it even goes for I think the question is, is it real estate in a bubble? Yeah, I think it's in a massive bubble, but it's also something real too. You own it. If you can buy it and you own it and the bank can't take it from you, that's a different story. But I mean, we saw what happened last time. People who had their mortgages almost completely paid off were thrown into the street and the banks took their homes. And then what did they do? The banks reinflated a housing bubble. Now that house is worth something, and now they can sell it for a profit. It's unbelievable, for an unbelievable profit. Mm-hmm. So it's a very tough spot to be in. It really is. I think it's always better to own than to rent or lease something. I don't like that whole game here. It's always better to own things than borrow them temporarily and pay for them on a temporary basis. But again, I mean, it's a tough spot for people to be in. It really, everything is a tough spot for people to be in right now. I think a lot of people are hurting very, very badly. They don't know what to do. They've been deliberately destroyed by this scam that they're living right now. New World Order device they're being forced to wear on their faces. It's criminal. It's criminal. But again, it's the society. It's where they're pushing us. It's not where we're going. It's where they're pushing us. They're pushing us towards this slave society where there is full control. If you understand that, also you should factor that into your little repertoire, what you think you need to do. Where do you go? What do you do? I don't know. You kind of got to hunker down and think about what you can do, at least to try to protect yourself, to get yourself on the right side of this from every aspect, not just from a financial standpoint. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's kind of what I focus on here. But I think the bigger picture is people need to look, man, you got to be right spiritually. You got to be right physically, mentally. You have to have all this together first before you can start thinking about what you want to do. And maybe the biggest part of that is trying to get your head on straight. You know, people are so used to being lied to and propagandized, they can't think. They're unable to use their mind in a way to analyze the situation. They're more reactive. React. You can't react. You have to, of course, it's important to react to things and act upon things, but you have to analyze them and put it into perspective. And that's why it's so important, I think, for people to turn off the mainstream news, because it's all lies, all of it. It's not real. It's all fake. They're trying to convince you again that what you're seeing is not real. But it is very real what you're seeing. So get yourself in the right spots, people. But I guess start with yourself. Start with where you are from a spiritual standpoint, from your physical standpoint, because you don't have your health. You're just done. If you don't know who you actually are, and you're not, then know yourself, know who you actually are. You don't know anything at all. I'm talking about, like, now I'm going on here to the spiritual realm here. Who actually are you? Are you an arm? Are you a leg? Are you a body? Or are you a spiritual being? And how strong is that relationship you have with the Almighty? I think that's probably such an important thing to grasp. And then once you get that, and then you, again, must take care of yourself physically, and then you can start thinking about these other things too. I think the problem is people look at a problem, okay, and instead of tackling a small piece at a time, they try to tackle the whole thing at once. You got to pick one thing. Okay, I'm going to work on this first. No matter what, pick anything, and pick that one thing and work on it first, and then that little thing will kind of, circle out, and you'll be able to take care of a bigger problem. But you got to start somewhere. I think that's just so important to understand, that you got to just do something and then follow through with it. You can't just say, okay, I'm going to start this and then I'm not going to finish it, because that's what a lot of people do too. They'll start a project, whatever it might be, and they don't finish it. They become overwhelmed, or whatever it might be. Maybe they bit off too much. Start off really small. Start off really, really small. You want to bet against the debt, become your own central bank? Start by one piece of silver. Start off with that one thing, and that one little thing will just grow for you, and it might change your whole perspective on a whole bunch of things. And the other thing is, understand you're not, you have to rely on other people too. You must get together with like-minded groups of people. I've been telling people that for the longest time. Try to connect with people in your neighborhood if you can, or at least online, I guess. It would be better if you could interact with people in person that are like-minded with you, that understand where you're coming from, where maybe you can get together and talk to these people. You get a bunch of people together that have the same mindset, you're going to be that much better off. So seek groups of people out like that. It's so important. But, today, look what they're doing. They have us locked in our houses. We can't go anywhere. We can't shake hands with anyone. You can't get close to anybody. You think this is by accident too? Of course not. Of course not. They don't want you interacting with people. They realize that there's power in that. If people got together and they started talking and interacting with like-minded people, it gives them power. They want to take that power away. They want to control you. This is so much bigger than people actually think it is. But a lot of people buy it. and they think it is what it is, but it's actually not at all what it seems to be.
Well, you've been building a very fast-growing pride of lions and those people who have subscribed to your newsletter and so on. So make sure you give people a chance to understand here, if they want to follow your work, how do they get plugged in?
Just go to my website, traderschoice.net. There's a free chat room there. I have a newsletter that's like almost 50,000 people there. It's all free. These are like-minded people. These are people that understand where we're coming from. People that follow this blog of yours. In these interviews, they're all like-minded people too. Befriend these people. Talk to these people. They're not just little, comments. These are real people that are putting these things down. Try to interact with them. Get together with these people. That's how we may be. These people that are writing comments, they're real people. Try to connect with these people. I would urge that people that follow my work or in my room, my chat room, and if you go to my chat room on my website, these people all know each other. It's an amazing thing to watch these people interact all day long. This is what's so important, interact with people, getting together with people. And if you could, better would be to be in person. Find some people to get together with. I don't know, join a lodge or something. Get together with people, a church. I don't know, wherever you can find like-minded people that get it, because a lot of people aren't going to get it. So maybe start your own group. I don't know, start your own blog. Something.
One of the guests we've had on quite often, Joel Salatin, he's a teaching farmer and activist and so on. He says if you get together with people in your own area, start a gardening club, start a beekeeping club, start a chicken keeping club, because that's actually going to bear fruit literally in more than one way. Also, absolutely, folks, so you don't lose track with us, make sure you go to libertyandfinance.com. Over on the left-hand margin, put your name and your email address. You'll get on our email list so that we get every one of our interviews with every one of our guests. All of the descriptions and any links that they give us are all in there. 3 times a week it comes out. It's all free. Make sure you get on that.
Absolutely. Start saying hello to your neighbors. You walk outside. How many times have people, you just walk down the street, you saw this guy 50 times. Have you ever said, how you doing? Probably not. People do it all the time. In my neighborhood here, I walk around, unless I go out of my way to say hello to people, and I do it all the time. They just don't. They just kind of walk by. This is their world. They have blinders on. Those blinders have been put on them. But we are social creatures. If you're not going to do it, who else is going to do it? So go out there, start saying hello to people, introduce yourself to people, say hello to your neighbors. I don't know, do something nice for somebody. Go clean up garbage in front of your neighbor's house. I don't know, something nice. We got to do things. We got to start realizing that we mean something to each other. We're important to each other. We need each other, all of us. And they don't want us to know that, because if we did, we'd gain strength, and they don't want us to have that strength.
Well, we've been speaking with Gregory Mannarino, the Robin Hood of Wall Street and founder of traderschoice.net. Greg, as always, on behalf of all of our viewers here at Liberty and Finance, we thank you for joining us, and just very grateful for your presence.
Great to be here. Thank you.
If you've decided that now is the right time for you to protect your family's financial future by acquiring physical precious metals, gold and silver, I'm delighted to let you know that I have now become a licensed dealer's representative for Miles Franklin, one of the oldest and most trusted names in bullion dealerships. And we can provide you with physical delivery to your personal possession, or to professional vault storage, or precious metals IRAs. Just email me at libertyandfinance@protonmail.com, and please include your name and phone number in your email to libertyandfinance@protonmail.com. We'll get right back with you and find out how to best meet your needs so that you can either begin or increase your acquisition of physical precious metals now and protect your family's future starting today. To acquire gold and silver, just go to libertyandfinance.com. When the main site comes up, click on Bullion Sales. That's libertyandfinance.com. Bullion Sales. You'll see my name, Dunnigan Kaiser, my phone number, and my associate Kaiser Johnson, his phone number, our email, libertyandfinance@protonmail.com.